We'll have the opportunity over the next hour to hear from the three Democratic candidates for governor of Massachusetts. I'll introduce those candidates to you right now. We have Dr. Don Berwick, who's the former administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Look, I'm not a politician. I'm a doctor, I'm an executive, I grew a nonprofit organization. I've worked on the well-being of children all over the world. This is not news that we need universal pre-kindergarten. That evidence has been there for a decade or more. Where have our political leaders been? My main reaction to the market basket story is my enormous respect for the workers who stood up for management that support them, for the kind of work culture that they value, and for the customers of that organization. It's a really good example of what standing up for the rights of people, especially working people, looks like. Like my colleagues, of course, my heart goes out to this victim and his family and to the tension in that community. I am for community policing, not combat policing, and I think escalation is the issue here. We need mechanisms to make sure that people can sit down and have dialogue. Hopefully this would never happen in Massachusetts, but you know what? This is the status quo right now. Tension, residual racism, the wages of inequality in our society. Violence like this is absolutely inexcusable. We need new thinking here. We need courageous political leaders who are going to stand up for the rights of human beings. The slogan of my campaign is all means all. Until people feel included, until we cross racial divides, until people of color, until immigrant communities feel completely included in our Commonwealth and in our nation, we're going to have the kind of tensions that can lead to this escalation of violence and the deterioration of community. I do not want that to happen in my state, and I will lead as governor toward inclusion of absolutely everybody. But the one big thing we disagree on is I'm the only candidate for governor that favors single-payer health care, Medicare for all. I do that because I want a just and equitable care system, a payment system that stands up for people instead of for big moneyed interests, and that will return money to the state treasury in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a big revenue source that none of my colleagues are looking at, and we need to go there as a state. Let me be really clear. Casinos destroy communities. They kill jobs. They do not add in jobs net. There are 39 states that have casinos. We know what happens. They've been well studied. University centers in Buffalo and Illinois and elsewhere, and I've talked to them and I've studied them. Casinos they shutter small businesses in the communities they enter. The communities are devastated. More jobs are lost than gained. You've got to look at the data. That is exactly what casinos do. If you don't think that's right, visit Niagara Falls, New York, or Ledyard, Connecticut, or look at Detroit right now, or what's happening in northern Mississippi. People say it adds to the state revenue. No, the states that have looked at it in general have found that state revenue goes down. Why? Because casinos add a burden to the community. They add gambling addiction, double or more gambling addiction in their areas. They add petty crime, they add drunk driving, and the state has to step in then to deal with more law enforcement and public safety. It has to deal with rescuing people with mental illness problems. The net to the state is negative, and it cannibalizes the lottery to a significant extent, and we need that lottery income. And maybe worst of all for me, for casinos, they are predators on the poor. Read the literature, look at the data. Casinos are adjusted to take money from people at the lowest levels of income. The biggest problem we have in this state is inequality. The biggest problem in the nation is inequality. And we need to begin to get the backs of people at the lower ends of the income spectrum, and having casinos is the wrong way to do that. Do we need jobs? Of course we need jobs. A better education system, smart growth, innovation economy, standing up for the rights of workers, not just a minimum wage, but a living wage, and getting out of the way of businesses, old-style politics, putting new regulations in front of business. Let's take regulations away that are hurting business. We can do that. That's part of the progressive agenda. That's the way to add jobs, plus single-payer health care. Casinos are just plain wrong. Look at the data. Housing costs are out of the reach of so many people, even who say they're in the middle class. There's almost 400,000 people in the state that are paying more than half of their income for housing. We have 4,600 families that are homeless, 19,000 people that don't have stable housing, and we have chronically homeless people in the state. I regard housing as a human right, food, clothing, and shelter. And where have our political leaders been allowing this kind of deterioration of support at a time when we absolutely know what to do? For chronic homelessness, we know how to end it. We need someone to stand up and say it's time to fix this problem. I think we're rated something like 41st in the country right now in access to housing stock. We should be first, and if I'm governor, we will be. The charter school debate is so charged. It's a perfect invitation for just political shenanigans where you try to read what you think people want you to say, you try to say that. That's not where I am. I'm not a politician, and I've looked at this hard as a pediatrician, as an entrepreneur. The correct answer, I think, is nuanced. I think that any executive that's managed a globally competitive organization knows you have to have sources of innovation inside your system, and sometimes the classical system has trouble doing that. So setting up what in industry is called skunk works, or privileged environments where people, you say, the rules don't quite apply to you right now, figure out some new stuff for the rest of us, is a really important idea in management. And I think that's the original source of the charter school idea. I am an absolutely unequivocal supporter of the public education system. It's a mainstay of a democracy. I do not think weakening public education in any way is called for. Charters, to me, have justification as suppliers to the public school system, supplier of ideas. The standard has got to be extremely high in government. And I think in this state, as well as around the country, people are losing trust. They see that the status quo is riddled with the influence of very large money and inside baseball. They don't like it.